Following the ending of Little Nightmares 2, many people changed their mind about Six, with many claiming she's been a villain all along. But is that true? Is Six really a villain, or is she just another victim of this dark and twisted world that she lives in? In today's video, I'm going to give my opinion and theories on why Six behaved the way she did in Little Nightmares 2, giving evidence to support it from the entire franchise. Spoiler warning, if you haven't played all of the games yet, there are going to be spoilers for most of them, including the DLC and the prequel here, so if you haven't played them all, please skip off this video now unless you're okay with spoilers. So if you have played, or watched, Little Nightmares 2, you will know that at the end, Six decides to drop Mono rather than saving him, and many people now view Six as a villain because of this. But to understand what could actually be going on here, we need to look at Six's journey across all the Little Nightmare games. For this, I am going to assume the most popular timeline, which is very Little Nightmares 2, and then Little Nightmares 1, although quite a lot of my arguments could still work even if the order was different. So let's start at the Nest. The Nest is an airborne facility run by a number of twisted characters, but with the Pretender presumably being the one in charge. Here we can see children being held captive, and then it appears like they are killed or transformed. We see a number of gnomes here, which could imply they are transformed like the lady does to the runaway kid. But more alarmingly, we see a number of dolls being made out of what appears to be human skin. The Pretender uses these dolls to pretend, hosting tea parties and even movie nights. Yeah, maybe best not to send your kids here for a sleepover. All the while, we play as the girl in the yellow raincoat. Most people on their first playthrough assumed this to be Six, although the ending hints heavily that the person who helps you along the way is actually Six, who escapes at the end. So Six has been at the Nest where children are held captive and killed. We don't know how Six got here, we don't know how long she has been here, but we do know that she has had to survive it, and she has also had to kill to do so. Six is the one that drops the boulder on the Pretender, and while it doesn't kill her outright, it does lead to her leaping off the cliff with the girl in the yellow raincoat, the fall presumably killing them both. Now here is something that very few people talk about. Six tries but fails to save the girl in the yellow raincoat. Why does she try and save her? That doesn't seem like something a villain would do. We see that she saves Mono several times in Little Nightmares 2, and we'll come back to that point later because it's very important. But at this point, Six doesn't need to save the girl in the yellow raincoat. In fact, Six could have easily made her escape while the Pretender was occupied. If we dig even further with this though, the girl in the yellow raincoat actually betrays Six. Just moments before the ending, the butler is chasing both girls towards the end of the game, and Six is falling on the ground. The girl in the yellow raincoat leaves her and locks herself in a shed, leaving Six banging on the door. So even after being left for dead by the girl, Six still tries to save her, but fails. This could have all taken a toll on Six's mental state, being a child and not only watching several children being held captive and killed, but then attempting to save another but failing and killing someone in the process. This could have traumatized Six, leaving her with something called survivor's guilt. Closely linked to post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, survivor's guilt can be common amongst people who survive disasters or other traumatic situations when others don't. Symptoms of survivor's guilt include feelings of guilt about what they did or what they did not do during the traumatic event, obsessive thoughts about the event, irritability and anger, feelings of helplessness and disconnection, fear and confusion, lack of motivation, problems sleeping, headaches, social isolation, thoughts of suicide, and finally, nausea or stomachache. Now with these symptoms in mind, we can start to look at the events of Little Nightmares 2 in a different way. Six is already suffering mentally from her time in Very Little Nightmares. We can see clearly that she has troubles with it, drawing the death of the girl on the wall, sleeping underneath a table, and monotonously playing the music box, almost disconnected from the world. It's only when Mono begins to hack down the door that she snaps awake from this trance, and look at how she reacts. Her first reaction is to run and hide. Six at this point is definitely in survival mode. When Mono reaches out his hand, Six slowly looks like she's going to take it, but then she runs again, knocking down Mono and fleeing. She doesn't trust him, but more than that, she's acting out of her survival instinct. That's what Six is, a survivor. When it comes to the point that she cannot get into the attic without his help, Six almost reluctantly comes to the realization that Mono is no threat, and she needs him to escape here. Now, why does Six seem reluctant to accept his help in the first place? The most obvious answer? She's afraid to help another child like she did in Very Little Nightmares, knowing that the likelihood is that the other child won't survive. She's already riddled with survivor guilt and she doesn't want to get close to another child, knowing the pain that it would cause her if that person was to die. However, as Six and Mono work together to navigate this world, Six realizes that Mono is not only capable, but he also has power. The fact that he can control the TV signal and enter it must have been noticed by Six. She's the one that pulls him out after all. So she must know that he has some level of power, and by this point Six has accepted Mono as her ally. When we get to the point where Six retrieves the yellow raincoat, and Game Assault by the way has a pretty cool video about how it could have gotten there, we could even interpret this moment to be the point where Six comes to terms with the events of the first game, at least partially. Her accepting the raincoat could be her metaphorically accepting that she couldn't save the original owner. It's a very important step in Six's character arc. Not only has she accepted her role in the events of the nest, she is now literally wearing it as her armor. The survivor guilt gone, replaced by a newfound determination to survive no matter what the cost. Don't forget, she did attempt to kill the Pretender in Very Little Nightmares, and while it didn't succeed, it did lead to her death and the death of the girl. The moment she puts on the raincoat, the screen goes dark, almost like an eye blinking. This is a pretty obvious reference to the eye symbolism and perhaps foreshadowing, but it could also be Six accepting that she will always have a dark side with her, a dark side that keeps her alive. We have another very important moment in Six's character arc. When Six and Mono fall as one of the houses collapse in on them, Six is trapped underneath the rubble and she desperately reaches out for Mono to save her. As he does, the two share a moment, both looking into each other's eyes. There are a number of ways you could interpret this. 1, that Six is finally accepting that Mono is a good guy and a friend. 2, that Six finally accepts that she can rely on others. Or 3, Six has realized that other people are dangerous and that they get her trapped in the first place. I personally think that it's a little bit of each. I think in this moment, Six is conflicted. She appreciates the help, but also struggles to accept that she needs Mono. So, as Six and Mono continue towards the signal tower, we have a Six who has gotten over her survivor's guilt and accepted a little part of her darkness. But when Mono releases the Thin Man from the TV, something that Six tried to prevent several times, she tries to get Mono to run. You can see her grab at him, clearly trying to get him to flee, and clearly showing that Six knows the Thin Man is a threat. When the Thin Man finally catches up to Six, Mono has the opportunity to help her, and Six reaches out to him, but he doesn't. He chooses to hide. We as the players probably forgave Mono in this moment. He is a child and he's scared, but Six might not have. Knowing that she would do anything to survive, and knowing that she has saved Mono several times in the game, this moment could be seen in 2 ways. 1, a betrayal, or 2, just another weak child who doesn't have what it takes to survive. This moment could have solidified it in her mind. She doesn't need Mono after all, because he is weak and she is strong. This moment leaves behind a shadow of Six, a glitching remains, and this could be the Dark Six that we see in Little Nightmares and in the secret ending. It's hard to say, but either way it appears that a piece of Six is left here while the rest has been taken to the signal tower or TV dimension. We also have another important scene before we get to the end of the game. Before Mono is chased through the city by the Thin Man, we see Six attempting to leave that realm via a TV, and we see that Mono tries and almost succeeds to pull her out before the Thin Man snatches her back again. This shows that even in the realm she's in now, Six is still presenting that fierce survival instinct. She's surviving in that world, even attempting escape, but is currently unable to do so by herself. If you've seen my video on the tragic history of Mono, I go into detail about how Mono, and therefore the Thin Man's biggest fear is being left alone, and this ties into the theory too. At this moment, Six is yet again let down by Mono. He at least tries to save her this time, but he is too weak to do so. As the lone wolf survivor that Six is, after all she spent most of her time in these games alone, this further reinforces her viewpoint that she doesn't need anyone else to survive. And this could explain Dark Six, but we'll come on to that shortly. So fast forward to the end of the game. Mono arrives at the signal tower, but we now see that Six was warped and twisted, physically and metaphorically. She has become a monster, but it is basically just an exaggerated version of herself. She is solitary, defensive, wary of strangers, and she takes comfort in her music box. She isn't actually all that different to the Six we see at the start of the game. In fact, the room here is set up very similarly. Her bed is on the left, she is alone with the music box, and she has images of people with scratched out faces on the wall. We could even go further and speculate that the girl on the picture in the wall is the girl in the yellow raincoat, which would actually debunk part of my theory in my last video on the lady. Now I need to make a whole other theory video. Thanks, brain. But let's take a look at the metaphorical message on display here. Six at the start of the game was riddled with survivor's guilt, and she takes comfort in solitude, her music box also being a huge part of making her feel better. She likes the music and being alone. And who disturbed that? Mono. Now we are in the signal tower, she is once again seeking comfort in solitude and her music box. Who comes in and disturbs that? Mono. He is literally and metaphorically destroying her comfort. This would make so much sense. A person who is struggling with severe PTSD, who managed to find some level of comfort and relief, only for that to be ripped away by Mono. Twice. When we finally break the music box, we see Six crying out in pain until she reverts to her normal self. But what many people seem to overlook is that Six's transformation into the Monster Six is only the physical transformation. She has undergone a metaphorical one as well. We assume that Mono was breaking her music box to free her from the signal's corruption, trying to free her from her prison in the signal tower, but what if all along he was freeing her from her own prison, her mental one? Mono breaking the music box was him breaking her last remaining need for comfort. By breaking it, Six has now fully accepted who she is. She is no longer weak, she is no longer that scared child we met at the beginning of the game, she is no longer guilt-ridden and broken, she is finally free. We could also interpret this as that she is finally pushed over the edge. This could be the last straw for her. Maybe in her freedom, she has finally embraced the madness. Almost like a Joker meme going on right now. We see yet another small moment between the two. Six looks at Mono for a moment. This moment could mean so many things, but knowing that Mono has now twice disturbed Six's peace, and twice now she has been trapped because of him, I think this is Six giving Mono a disapproving look. So when we come to the final chase scene and Mono falls behind like Six did in Very Little Nightmares, Six follows her instinct and stays behind to save Mono. Many people call Six evil or a villain, but she could have just left him to die and left through the TV. We can see that the TV has already been activated, and we know that Mono only activates the signal in the TV, so it can be assumed that Six is already free to leave. We see that Six falls back to her instincts. Her instinct to help people like she did in Very Little Nightmares even after she was betrayed. But when she grabs Mono by the hand, she gets a good look at his face. This is yet another key moment in the relationship between Mono and Six. Six can see Mono without his mask now. She can see his true face. And I think this is where Six figures out who he is. She sees his true form, that of the Thin Man, yes, but more than that. She sees him for what she considers to be a weak boy, one who is afraid of being alone, so much so that he will imprison those around him. And in this moment, Six decides she will never be trapped again. By dropping Mono and leaving him to his own fate, yes, she betrays him, but she finally lets go of her conflict. She finally realizes that other people are liabilities, ones that will get her trapped, and ones that don't come through when she needs them the most. She will never let that happen again. She will never rely on another person. She will do whatever it takes to survive, and this moment is her finally committing to that. She doesn't need anyone, not anymore. This is the moment that Six accepts her darkness fully. In the secret ending, after Six leaves the TV realm, we see that she is standing face to face with Dark Six. Dark Six nods towards them more, and Six begins to feel the hunger pains. Now this is pure speculation, but what if the reason she is feeling the hunger pains now is that she is starting to grow up? After all, we see that the adults in this world all seem to get twisted in some way, only the children appear to be unaffected. Mono has powers, but he seems good until he grows to be the Thin Man. We see the Pretender having similar powers to the Lady, yet the Pretender looks relatively normal while the Lady has a warped and twisted face. What if the reason why Six is now feeling the hunger is because she left her childhood innocence behind in the TV realm? After all, we know that time is broken, we don't know how long she's been in there for. She grew as a character, and metaphorically this means she's now starting to become twisted like everything else in this world. Either that, or her accepting the darkness, visually represented here by Dark Six, is also what caused her to become twisted. So to summarize, I don't think that Six is a villain. I think that she is a survivor. She is human, and yes, she has a dark side, but who doesn't? Everyone has their darker side, and Six has been through far more than most, especially for a child. Her monstrous nature is a product of her world and her experiences, and her journey is a metaphor that many can relate to. So that is my opinion on whether or not Six is a villain. If you enjoyed this theory, I have a bunch more on the channel. I also have more horror gaming content, so if you want to check those out, I will leave a couple of videos up on the screen now that you can give a click if you want to. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.